Welcome back. In chapter 5, we discuss consciousness. Okay, so what is consciousness exactly? When we use that term, what exactly does that mean? Well, a consciousness is a person's subjective experience of the world and their mind, right? So it's essential what it means to be human is to have a sense of consciousness and a sense of who we are, right? Internally, externally, our place in the world. So psychologists want to understand this, right? How things seem to work in the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And one of the great mysteries is called the problem of other minds. This is trying to perceive and understand what's going on in someone else's mind, right? So there's no way to really tell if another person's experience is exactly like yours because you're not in their mind, right? Another mystery is the mind-body problem. This has to do with how the mind is related to the mind-body, right? So most psychologists assume that mental events are intimately tied to brain events, right? So they're intimately connected, brain, mind, body. Everything is interconnected, right? One will influence the other. Every thought, perception, and feeling is associated with a particular pattern of activation in your brain, with those neurons we were talking about earlier, right? So studies suggest that brain activities precede consciousness, right? So your brain activates before we recognize that something is going on. As a rule, the brain begins to show electrical activity around half a second before we produce a voluntary action. So if we touch a hot stove, right, our brain perceives it, it gets us off there automatically before we even are conscious about what we did, right? We do it. Our brain makes us do it. We've already perceived it. Our brain has fired off those neurons and said, hey, get your hand off that stove. And we've done it before we're even conscious of it. Full consciousness involves a consciousness of oneself, such as thinking about driving, right? We have to watch what's going on the road, pay attention to signals, oncoming traffic and such. So we have to be conscious and in the present moment and aware of what's going on around us. That's full consciousness. Then there's daydreaming, right? A lot of us daydream. It's like a default network that happens when a person is not given a specific task to focus on. The brain sort of wanders on its own, and that's where a lot of imagination and creativity actually comes from. That's different than sleep, right? In sleep, the brain shows high frequency beta wave activities, right? There's different cycles of sleep that we go through where our brain is a little bit more functional than other parts. Like in REM sleep, our brains are super active. We're consciously dreaming. We may even know that we're dreaming when we're dreaming. Has that ever happened to you? You're dreaming and you're like, oh, I'm in a dream. You can almost control what's going on in your dream, right? So sleep across species, right? Most species sleep. Animals, insects, we all require sleep, right? To rejuvenate our brains and to get us refreshed for the next day. Sleepwalkers, we have those as well, right? So that's more of a sleep deprivation type of that, a sleep disorder, right? Is sleepwalking, sleep apnea. There's different types of sleep disorders. Dreams, right? You've heard of Freud and the unconsciousness and in his interpretation of dreams. He theorizes that dreams represent unacceptable wishes that the mind can only express when disguised in dreams. You know, it's debatable. Some people find some support for that, some not so much. But then we have altered consciousness, right? So hypnosis, drugs can alter our sense of consciousness. People usually don't become addicted to a psychoactive drug the first time they try it. They experiment a few times after that. They find themselves that there's a tendency to have to increase the drug over time. They're growing a tolerance for the drug. And you can see how it can affect your brain and your consciousness, and people think differently and perceive things differently, and there's a different sense of reality when you're hypnotized or on psychoactive drugs and such. So consciousness, right, to wrap it all up, it's a sense of who we are, our mind and bodies working together to produce a sense of our internal self and our place in the world. So once again, get on the Moodle page, watch your videos, get on the discussion board, and we're going to have some great discussions about this. And next time, chapter 6, we'll discuss memory. All right, take care.